Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I love to have you. And today I want to react to this bloater take. I find it very fascinating how fat activists in general, they can say the same thing in different ways at times. So this person has this like pseudo intellectual, I'm a PhD candidate, blah blah blah, that kind of thing going on. But if you notice, it's all the same crap that we hear all the time, just stated with a little bit more flowery language, I guess. So let's go ahead and react. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'm going to react to it piece by piece. But let's go.
I keep seeing people say that the fat community, fat liberationists, or anyone else that's interested in dismantling fat phobia and anti fat bias in society think that intentional weight loss is fat phobic. And I just want to say, first off, that is a statement that really lacks context.
So there's a lot of people in fat acceptance that have said that for years. They're actually starting to say it again. It went away for a little bit in 2024 after they jumped the shark with the Leo Skepi thing. So they stopped saying that, but they're starting to say it again. So they think we forgot. I didn't forget. Many of us have not forgotten 2020 to 2024 when they said it over and over and over again. And now they're starting to again in 2026. So no, you say that it's fat phobic all the time. You maybe don't personally, but there are plenty within fat acceptance that do.
Or nuance about the discourse that is actually happening in fat community.
No, it doesn't. It's just pointing out a basic fact of what fat activists say. That's not lacking nuance. Some fat activists say it is fat phobic to lose weight. That, oh my gosh, that's so annoying. I think we've reached a point where nuance for a lot of, I'll just say, for a lot of fat activists, nuance has no meaning. It's just what you think you're seeing isn't real. What you think you're hearing isn't real. Let me tell you what's actually real. Let me gaslight you. That's basically what it is when they say nuance, because they never have nuance. It's almost always black and white thinking. It's E followed by the letter D logic most of the time. So no.
But also, I want to talk about it. My name's Amanda. I'm a PhD candidate in sociology, and I study medical fat phobia. So I want to start out with, I think one of the central tenets of fat liberation community is centered around body
That's not true.
autonomy. And that autonomy exists whether you want to or not engage in weight loss.
No. So that started in 2024, but there's actually a lot of times where you are actually enforced to stay obese. You are enforced to even upsize in certain circumstances. Body autonomy does not exist within fat acceptance whatsoever. You are seen as a part of a fat herd, HERD, basically, a fat herd, and you cannot leave or you are betraying it, basically, which that is not autonomy at all. Now, from a spiritual perspective, I do believe that it is important to have autonomy in terms of body weight, even if the crowd is against you. And I highly support people being not fat anymore, basically, or not being fat anymore, even if it leads to public scrutiny at times, or especially people, zombie horde scrutiny, basically, people that have E followed by the letter D that greatly identify with being fat, that feel betrayed when you leave. I highly suggest to still leave, even if you deal with people getting pissed at you. This is your life. It's more important that you get your life together and that you are healthier than it is to please people that are on a highway to hell, basically.
I think that there are, people really want to focus on individual behavior and not necessarily about the social structures and institutions that really benefit individuals.
So can I talk about a social structure of E followed by the letter D and how fat activists use it to encourage those behaviors in others? Not just BINGing, but also the reductive side of it as well. Can we talk about that social structure, or is it just whatever you feel like is right? Can we not talk about that phenomenon? Because it happens and it's known that E followed by letter D is not just internal, it's also external. We can't even talk about it honestly on YouTube because of the social pressures that social structure of E followed by letter D logic is basically controlling the conversation because they are in institutions. So can I talk about that social structure, or am I only allowed to talk about what you say is fat phobia? Because only what you view as a social structure is relevant, not what anybody else sees
Individuals
or even brushes up against, like I do in this work.
who do engage in weight loss and end up in a thinner or smaller body. The reality is that society becomes far more kind and accessible to you when you are thin.
So this is, I would say it's honestly, I have talked about this so many times this year. So I have become thin. I've downsized by 170 over years. And there are a lot of things that are more accessible in terms of like physicality. So fitting into things, fitting on an airplane better, for example, fitting into a car better, fitting at a restaurant, like that kind of stuff, or theater, places like that. That is all true. But kinder, I don't know. I think it's very exaggerated. So it's so subtle that you have to either like really play it up, or you have to, or you're not going to notice it, honestly. The only thing that you might experience is you might experience more romantic attention, but there are a lot of fat people that still experience romantic attention, so it might not be that different for them. And that's very subjective. Like when I talk about fatness and when we talk about fatness on this channel, we isolate fatness from other factors. Fatness is not a gender, fatness is not a level of attractiveness. Fatness can influence attractiveness, but it's not just because you lose weight doesn't mean you're going to be pretty. Just because you gain doesn't mean you're going to be ugly. It's not exactly 100%. It's also somewhat subjective, obviously. So, all of these experiences, your personality, how you do it, the way in which you present yourself after you've downsized, all of those things play into a factor of how you're treated after. If you don't have the right narrative, if you don't say that it was lucky or that you could never do it, but I did, if you don't say that, then you will face a lot of scorn, actually, especially if you try to help people along the way. You actually face a lot of problems because of the social structure of E followed by the letter D, and people being very upset that you are violating their belief system. So you will actually face backlash if you do it publicly, if you do it in such a way to encourage people to be able to do it as well. They hate you for it. And at certain points, like even when it comes to celebrities and stuff, so people like Lizzo and Meghan Trainor, when they have downsized, they've lost their fan base over it. And but we're supposed to ignore that, I guess. You know, it really has to do with what you pay attention to. I don't feed into it or take away from it. So what are aspects of thin privilege I have experienced? Being able to fit into things is a good thing. It's easier. Other than that, taken a little bit, not less seriously. You're taking a little bit more seriously, but but it does tie directly into my line of work. So I don't even know if that would happen to everybody because it literally has to do with my line of work. And I still get treated like a dumbass if I say something that people don't want to hear in terms of diet. You're still thrown in the trash in an instant because, again, E followed by the letter D logic is still rampant. And if you dare step out of line, you are dumb and ignorant and whatever to these people. So even being thin or even having downsized or maintained or all these things, it doesn't matter. This is a whole other clown world line of work that I'm in. It's the back rooms. It's tough. And people are nuts. And I will say people are nuts because I don't give a fuck. I will tell you guys, if you do this publicly, people are crazy. It is zombie activity, full stop. You will have to deal with it. People will project weird things onto you. It will get weird. So, especially online. No, their idea of thin privilege is this mythology that people are genetically thin and that's just how they're born and they are just that way and people are just automatically in shape and they just stay in shape forever. That's basically how they view it, which it is a fat acceptance folklore. TR folklore, I call EFOL by the letter D, the toxic ritualistic on the channel too. I call it TR folklore a lot. But this idea that it's your genetic destiny to be in amazing shape. You don't have to work out. You don't have to maintain that shape. You just are that way. And that is who they will sometimes worship within EFOL by the letter D spaces. They will worship people like that, literally like bow down to their feet practically. But if you are a fat person that downsizes, you are a traitor and they hate your guts because you disprove their belief. And so I don't think it's that privileged. It's not. It's super conditional, hyper conditional. It is literally like you must lie to get that privilege. I don't know if that's real then. You know, you have to, like, there are so many, God bless them, but there are so many women who have downsized, who then have to go online and talk about all the things they miss about being bigger because they feel such a social stigma and pressure to say that. The fact is, they don't miss anything about it. It's bullshit. They're lying to you and they're weak. I think that type of person is weak. And I don't like it for activistic purposes. I will never do it though. They may be weak, but I am strong. I will not cave. I don't miss anything about being fat. I don't miss anything about being bigger at all. It was an awful experience. I wish it would have ended sooner. That's basically what I have to say about it.
And so while that does not necessarily mean that that individual choice is rooted in fat phobia or not fat phobia, the reality is that becoming thinner does mean that you are gaining thin privilege. And
what is the thin privilege? People treat you so much better. I'm starting to get mean mugged in public. Am I being treated better? I don't think so. A lot of men are mean mugging me in public. And I live in a small town. So my downsizing is not just public online, but it's also public in the community that I live in. And people are salty, especially men. So what is this? What is the privilege? Is it in the room with us?
And that is something that individuals need to contend with. But the discourse that I've actually...
For the record, I do think that you will face a lot of intrasexual competition if you start to be more in shape, which it is subjective. It is based upon where you live. It's based upon your community, which I'm in Alabama. So apparently I'm becoming Alabama fit. But it's pretty sharp and pretty instant.
Actually seen in my over 20 years within fat liberation community is often about resisting the emphasis and desire for fat people to be forced to engage with weight loss and diet talk.
So you want everybody to shut up about it and not talk about it at all. Well, too bad. You don't get to silence other people. I don't get to silence you, so you don't get to silence me. You're going to have to deal with it. You say this bullshit, I'm here to spout against it. I'm here to fight it. You will not do it without me pushing back because you are a liar. I want to call you an effing liar. That's what I want to say, but I won't.
Particularly within fat community spaces, when those spaces are specifically made to be a safe space for fat people, and trying to resist.
Yes, because you're trying to reinforce each other's E fall by the letter D's. There are places where this happens on the reductive as well. That's what you're doing. And I'm sorry, but no, I don't give a fuck about your reinforcement. I do not give a fuck. I don't care if you identify with your E followed by the letter D. It's not good for you. I'm not going to back up your bullshit, period. I'm never going to. And you can hate it and you can hate it and you can feel anxious and you can feel all these things. You're not going to control what I say. You're not going to control people that speak out against it. That's a part of life. You have control issues. You have an E fall by the letter D. You have control issues. You have a problem. And I'm here to tell you you have a problem. And I'm not going to just, I guess, oh my gosh, we shouldn't encroach on fat content creation. No, I don't give a fuck. You're putting it out there. It's public. Why do you have to reinforce your DIS order to everybody? Why do you have to encourage other people to stay huge? It's not enough that you're doing it to yourself. It's because you know it's bullshit. So you all have to feed each other's bullshit all the time.
Resist the ever consuming way that diet culture and weight loss talk is part of our everyday lives.
What about fat talk? What about the fact that you're talking about how fat you are all the time? What about the fact that your literal PhD has to do with fatness? What about that? Do we ignore that? That's not an issue. That's not something that should be judged. I think it should be judged. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's laughable even.
And so to me, that conversation is more about consent than it is about this.
Okay, well, I don't consent to you posting this. So what about that? It can go both ways, can it? I don't consent to you spreading your toxicity to the world, but you're still doing it. You don't care about consent. You don't care about that. You care about your own issue. But this is the thing. This is where I struggle with people in general society. They take someone like her seriously. And I don't understand why. And I feel like I don't know if I'm just too auntie, if I'm too old now, if I'm bitter. I don't know. If I'm just not naive anymore. But I don't understand how people can be so naive in their 20s and not, like, especially like mid 20s, and not understand that people lie. People lie to you. When somebody has an E fall by the letter D, they lie to your face. Bold-faced lies. They even lie to themselves. Like, I don't know how people don't understand that. I've dealt with a lot of liars in my life. Have you never been around a liar? I don't get that. It's so odd to me. And they're just like, well, she said that, so that's what she believes. No. Because it doesn't make sense. If you're already fat, then you don't have to be reinforced in being fat. You just are. Why do you need reinforcement? Why do you need a fat space? People don't ask that question. People don't think. They only think about things. They think about things very linearly. And people with these issues use that. And you have to pay attention to the context or the overall. I think it's something I've learned actually from a lot of the Britishy people in my life, or the Britishy people that I talk to all the time and stuff. I've learned how to see the context of something. And I think it's an important skill for those of us in America to understand the context. She is studying this for a PhD so she can spread it to other people. Why? Why does she have to spread it to other people? Remember that fatness is a state that has to be maintained. Why is she doing this? Who is she talking to? She's talking to someone like me, someone who's critical. Why is she saying this? Because she wants me to shut up. Can you see the context? It's important. It's an important thing. It's also why I don't think this was ever going to take root in the UK. It's a huge blind spot. And I don't know if it's that fat activists struggle with contextual cues. I feel like there might be some brain fry going on at certain levels of obesity, but it's something that I'm looking at and that I'm noticing as I did a reaction to a British man who was a fat activist and who's very big, and he couldn't see context either. It's interesting, but it might be a way to fight it. I'm going to keep mulling that over in my mind.
Conversation about how if you are a good or bad individual because you chose to or not to lose weight. But also, I do want to get us to think about the fact that.
Tell that to the people that canceled Angelica.
Weight loss, and particularly intentional weight loss, very much of that is very performative in nature.
What about fatness? Is fatness performative? Especially if you have to talk about it and study it for a PhD, would that be performative too? I know E followed by the letter D is highly performative, especially within BINGE. The other ones tend to be a bit more covert. Within bingo, it's all out there. It's on blast. Every second of every day. It's a huge performance. You perform health, you perform illness, you perform addiction, you perform a lack of control, you perform emotions, you perform shame, you perform pride. You perform a lot of stuff within BINGE. And you, of course, perform fatness as identity. Of course. The number one performance, because it's fake.
In that there are social expectations for how you engage in that weight loss.
And there's also social expectations in how you engage with fatness too. I mean, this is such a stupid take, because it's kind of like she's throwing a pebble into a pond and it's just like falling to the ground. She's not really saying anything. Everything, there's social expectations for literally everything. So what does that mean? What is the point of what you're saying? She's trying to frame it as if, well, if we stay big, then we're rebellious, we're radical. No, you're not. There's a lot of people that want you to stay big. You want people to stay big. What if I rebel against you? Well, I'd say that's rebellious, for sure. Today in the United States, going from being big to thin is probably one of the most rebellious things you could do in our culture in the United States. Is it any shock that the other two fireflies are all girlies? Robin and Angelica. Pretty rebellious. I'm a brat. It's pretty rebellious. Who's rebellious here? You? The one who's being propped up in some weird program at your university that I don't think should exist? Personally, I don't think it should. Or someone like me who has to censor what I say? Who's actually more rebellious? Because Nita doesn't allow us to talk about this clearly. So who has the structural power here? And who is actually rebellious? It says it all.
That means that you, one, are talking about it. You are often posting before and after photos. Other people might talk about it with you. I remember I.
Okay, well, I feel like when you're performing fat activism, you say a lot of the same things that everybody else says, which, sure, activism is repetitive. I'm just pointing out that she's also performing here. So what is your point? What is your point?
Started a new job a few years ago, and the first thing that a new coworker told me on the first day of both of our days of the job was that he was losing weight. And this is stuff that generally I don't care about. But what you as an
You don't care about it, but it's your area of study and you're getting a PhD in it. Liar. Did you catch the lie? Do I need to teach you guys how to catch lies? I know not all of you, but some of you. I worry about you guys that can't see that. Why? Because of the context. Think about the context in which she's saying this. I don't care about this, but this is literally my PhD. When you are doing a PhD, it is your blood, sweat, and tears. It is a lot of work. I have a best friend that is getting a PhD. It is so much work. I deeply respect her work ethic. It is a struggle. It is tough as nails to get a PhD. You have to care about what you're studying. For her to say that, she is a fucking liar. Do you understand the context in which she said that? I need you to pay attention. We need to be a little bit more like our friends across the Atlantic.
Individual do with your body, I also don't care about. I care about resisting those structures that make it seem like that's the only choice you have. I keep.
Liar. Okay. So I will talk to you guys later. Like I told you, I have to do these kind of shorter because I'm stockpiling them. So I will talk to you guys soon. Have a good rest of your day, night, etc. Peace.